a really great community manager versus product or engineering. Product and engineering are going to clock off at the end of the day, right? And they're going to go home. But really great community people are about that life, right? And that's the authenticity thing as well. I've had to say to my wife, like, there isn't any halfway between. You're either living it or you're not, right? And so the vision and the drive and believing in what you're doing is really critical to community and the project itself. If people don't believe in it, I don't think they should have a position in the project.
What do you feel is the most misunderstood part of what Web3 community building is? I mean, what people don't get about that?
I mean, on a superficial level, I think people often think it's a pump and dump, but I think people actually are here to see a great transformation in the world and do something good. So there's a lot of kind of hope and vision that brings people together. And to kind of dovetail or to connect the question there and what we were just talking about with memes, and also you're talking about the FUD, I think there's like a positive and a negative side to these things, right? And there's a book I linked in there called Microscripts, and the core idea is it's not about what I say, it's what you hear and repeat. So it might be FUD, or it might be something positive like academic peer review or bank the unbanked, or so. And the thing is, like, if me and Brian were testing stuff with the community, and that's one thing you can do with it, you're looking at like what resonates with people. It's not the message that we're sending, it's what people are hearing and repeating. That's what's really powerful. And I think that's what's most often misunderstood. It's not what I have to say, right? It's what people hear and say about what we've got to say, or how they want to go about solving the problem. So I think like agency and understanding that the community owns itself. You can't own a community, right? It's self-sovereign. And good luck trying to tell it what to do. What you can be is a good player or a good participant in that community and ecosystem. And that's why things like trust and legacy and things like this are really important. And, like Satoshi, right? Like you may not have your name, but you got your proof of work. Your body of work speaks for yourself, right? So I think those are some of the things that are misunderstood. And when you get people coming with illustrious careers from Web2, they often feel like, not often, so I'll be unfair. There have been times that I've found that occasionally some people sort of have a very like top-down approach and think that because something worked in Web2, it's going to work here. And Web3 is about self-sovereignty, and freedoms of association, commerce, and expression. And I think that Web3 is really misunderstood because a lot of people really get into it to change the world, and maybe they become jaded and they go down, paths of VCs and pumps and dumps, and it's sad. But yeah, I think we're all here to change the world, and actually, I think that to go back to an earlier point, a really great community manager versus product or engineering. Product and engineering are going to clock off at the end of the day, right? And they're going to go home. But really great community people are about that life, right? And that's the authenticity thing as well. I've had to say to my wife, like, there isn't any halfway between. You're either living it or you're not, right? And so the vision and the drive and believing in what you're doing is really critical to community and the project itself. If people don't believe in it, I don't think they should have a position in the project. People can smell it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you were just saying about narrative and really getting people to repeat things, and really, this is actually I don't want to, without adding the actual like historical and the negative context to it, if we just kind of look at it strictly from kind of a logical delivery point, right? That's actually why a lot of times communist propaganda was so successful, right? It's because it was all really message based and slogan based, right? And so you got people just repeating these slogans over and over and over and over again, recognizing. And this is like, for example, and I grew up in a communism in the Soviet Union. All the kids knew the national anthem, like they had to know well, I mean, not all of them, but they would emphasize to know the national anthem. In fact, I'm pretty sure way more Soviet kids knew the Soviet national anthem than like the American kids know the American
Mm.
anthem. The same thing was, with this communist messaging where you would have, uh, in Russian, it's "Пролетарии всех стран соединяйтесь," which means the
Mm.
workers of the world unite, the proletariat of the world unite. That's also something that was just constantly out there, bam, 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 bam,
Mm-hmm.
bam, and people just kept repeating it, right? And you see how powerful that kind of messaging is. Now, of course, it was used for evil, insidious, ridiculous things, right? But it really shows you how human nature works, right? It really kind of really shows you how to what extreme human nature works and how important it is. Of course, you have to be responsible with this kind of messaging, right? You have to be responsible with the content you put out there, but you do need to have people, like you said, repeat these things, right? And I mean, of course, in a communist regime, you did have pretty tight media control of things, and that's why it was so much easier to propagate this, right? But
That's further
now,
down the line, right? But like
well,
early on, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So you take the two, right? So
Mm.
okay, so it's very important to have that messaging to get the people to repeat it, but control will ultimately fail. You cannot centralize control. It will ultimately come crashing down because it'll become too big and it'll become corrupt. It's just like, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So knowing that, this is why decentralized communities are so important, right? And that's why decentralized communities have such a strong push right now. But with that in mind, we know that decentralized communities are the way to go, right? That is, that is the natural progression of things. But how do you get that message, get those decentralized communities to actually hear and repeat that message so that that message propagates through the decentralized community without being able to be like the central point of delivery, right? The central point, the funnel from which all this stuff falls down. How do you do that in decentralized communities?
Because it's first of all, it's not about me getting you to listen to my message. It's about me understanding what your pain points really are and what you want out of life and what motivates you, right? That's why socialism works. I mean, yeah, for when it's in a mature ecosystem, like you're explaining there, they have a lot of control. But in a much earlier in the life cycle, it's about appealing to the fringe that don't have a stake in society and haven't built up, or they feel ignored, maybe legitimately, right? And so you're offering something to those people: power, visibility, this kind of thing, right? So, and that's the same in any system, right? Where if you have got, like, what's the correct word I'm looking for? There's a incumbents. I think I'm trying to say incumbents, like the people that are in there, even if it's a virtuous system. People that aren't at the top of the hierarchy want change, right? So if you have a message or you have a vision, you've really got to think about it like Ogilvy did, right? Which is about like, what is the customer's pain point? The customer or the user or the community member isn't an idiot, right? And so you better be speaking to something that really is important to them, right? And if you can't find something that's really important to them or a problem that they really want to solve with you, maybe your idea is shit, and you need to go back to basics and think about it. So the problem isn't like that your message isn't landing with the audience. It's that you don't understand who you're building with and building for, and you haven't found a problem that they care enough about to work on solving with you, or in fairness, maybe because I sometimes don't communicate well, maybe I haven't articulated what it is that we're doing. Maybe I've come in with a message that's more about what I want to get out of stuff. And it doesn't actually say, Brian, you're tired of hearing English guys waffle on for ages, aren't you? I've got a mute button. Would you like to use that? Right. So it's empathy, man. It's empathy. It's about being a good listener. And that's why if you're in a community role, you're connecting product and engineering and even C-suite and even marketing teams, and you're coming in and saying, here's what we're seeing. Like if marketing was the voice, then community is kind of like the ears and the sensory organs that are relaying what's happening, which comes to one point, but I won't go into it in length. one of the things we're dealing with is chaos and a lot of complexity and chaos in these environments. There's a lot of different stuff going on. So the sense making is a really important ability that this is my favorite topic anyway, because we'll talk about ecosystem maps and governance, and we want it to be on chain, but do people have a point of view or view of all the points? So I think sense making is a really important value that good community managers bring to the business, that they often sometimes struggle articulating as the explicit business value that they're offering.